This is the most important video so far in the group. We've been talking a lot about soft tissue release, how it's the first step to being able to self-adjust and retrain your nervous system to self-adjust. And what does that even mean? We have plenty of other videos on what it means and why it's important, but what are the soft tissues that you actually need to release? Today, that's what we're going through, is the specific muscle groups that everyone has problems with, and why releasing those is so important, what issues those can cause. So this is where we dive in a little bit deeper into what muscles to do soft tissue release on, why that's so important. So I'm Michal and this is Ryan. We're your co-hosts in the group, The Pain-Free Blueprint, and what we're here to do is teach you guys the root causes of what's actually causing your chronic pain and misalignment problems. The reason why you have to continue to go back to the chiropractor, massage therapist, physical therapist, or continue to band-aid it with pain meds or pain creams or yoga, an hour a day or whatever you have to manage your pain. Those are all band-aids. And when you understand the root cause, the solution becomes obvious. And so we're putting the power back in your hands so you can work all your body workers out of a job and just retrain your nervous system to self-adjust and maintain proper alignment, but also do it yourself if anything comes up in the future. And if I were to keep up my bodywork regimen before I learned these tools, it would be $180,000 minimum of what I'm going to spend for the rest of my life. So I am keeping that money in my pocket by being able to do this myself, and it becomes easy and it becomes pleasurable and I enjoy it and it's just wonderful. So that's what we're here to teach you guys. So Ryan, dive right in with us. What are the muscle groups that everyone pretty much has problems with, and walk us through that.
Yeah, absolutely. So here at the Pain-Free Blueprint, what we do is we educate people, right? We're here to give you the tools that you need to understand in order to be able to manage any sort of chronic pain symptoms that you might have, or mitigate or avoid altogether, right? So what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and jump right in and I'm not going to obviously show you every single muscle in the entire human body, but what we are going to do is attack kind of the common contributors that we see as a result of kind of the adaptation to the lifestyles that we have today. So, the slouching and, the sitting in long, in the hip flex position for long periods of time. We're going to kind of go after those. And then not only are we going to show you those muscles that should, you should be paying a lot of attention to, but we're also going to show you why those would contribute to postural distortion. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right in. I'm not going to go in any particular order. I'm just going to see what we got here. I'm going to cover all of them. So let's go ahead and start with this one.
Before you dive in, Ryan, I just want to say the principles with whatever issues you guys have, the principles we're teaching right now are the same. And so if you have a specialty weird problem, there is actually going to be soft tissues you need to release as your first step. So these are applicable to, what would you say, Ryan? 98% of people, 99% have problems.
The majority of people are going to have issues with, or some sort of chronic contraction through these types of tissues.
Yeah, so that's what we're teaching you guys is the major stuff, but the principles are still the same. So if you've got some weird issue, let us know. And we can even come on and do a special video on the types of soft tissues that you guys need to be looking at.
Absolutely. So this one's cool because this diagram shows three primary groups that I want to talk about. So if we look at this one on the left here, that is the pec major, and you can see how the fibers attach to this kind of almost like lateral side of the humerus. Now you can imagine if these fibers are chronically shortened, it is going to pull this humeral head medially, contributing to impingement issues, but also just the kind of more contribution to that rounded shoulder positioning. So that's why, the pecs are so important, to be getting in there and doing release and breaking up those adhesions. So that way we can create more slack. We can allow that humeral head to sit into a more neutral position, so we're not impinging the shoulder. And think about how many of you have had shoulder impingements or bursal inflammation. It's typically as a result, again, of kind of these shortened tissues that are pulling you into poor positioning, then you're reaching overhead multiple times, and every time you're kind of creating a little bit more of an impingement syndrome in that shoulder. So this is the pec major. That is one that I consider to be very important. Another huge contributor over here to the right is the pec minor. So this actually sits directly beneath this pec major, and you can see up here where it attaches to something called the coracoid process. So it's this little bone, and that bone is actually the front side of your scapula, your shoulder blade. So imagine these tissues. Again, it's very simple when you understand the concept. If you look at these, the direction, the orientation of those fibers, if they become contracted in that direction, that's the direction that it obviously contracts in. So that's the movement that that muscle contributes to. So if this gets chronically shortened, you're going to see what's called scapular tipping, where you'll see it in a lot of people where they have that rounded upper back, but they also have like this shoulder blade kind of comes up off the back. That's called a scapular winging. And usually by releasing the pec minor, you can get that scapula to kind of sit more neutral over the thoracic cage, over the rib cage. Okay, so those are two very important ones.
You're talking about right back here, how those people have those bulges.
Yeah, how you just see their scapula come right off their back.
Yep.
So that's scapular winging. And usually whenever I see that in people, the first thing I go to is this pec minor for release. So those are the two big ones there. The next one, let's look at the orientation of these fibers in the rectus abdominis, okay, the six-pack muscle, in this guy's case, 8. So if you look at that, look at the orientation, vertical fibers, right? So the function of the rectus abdominis is to flex the thoracic spine. So what do we see so many people in? We see them in this flexed spinal position. That's kyphosis is the technical term for that, where we have that rounded upper back. Now, if the function of the rectus abdominis is spinal flexion or thoracic flexion, and these fibers become chronically tight, what are we going to be stuck in? We're going to be stuck in that chronic spinal flexion position. So these three here, pec minor, pec major, those are typically going to address the shoulder positioning, which are contributing to that forward posture, and then addressing the rectus abdominis, which is going to address the thoracic flexion. Okay, so these are big ones, right? They all play a huge role because we know everything is kind of, connected, but these are kind of some really big players that we need to keep in mind. So we got those.
And I have a quick question too. One, where are the adhesions? Could it be anywhere in any of those bundle fibers or all throughout?
Yeah, so typically a good indication is feeling around in those tissues and feeling for points of like sensitivity. And those are typically called like a trigger point, right? And what that is that's usually where the bundle is, like the little nodule of fibers. And then what you see as a result of that is sometimes you'll feel pain above or below. Oops, sorry about that. You'll feel pain above or below, and that is called a referral pain. Okay, so that referral pain isn't usually the source of the pain. It's coming from the trigger point, right? So that's why the significance of trigger point therapy is finding those little nodules, those trigger points, holding with sustained pressure, and then releasing those. So sometimes you won't feel that either. I mean, you don't have to have trigger points in, say, the rectus abdominis, which is extremely rare. I've never felt any trigger points in my rectus abdominis, but it's still good to get in there and do some release to those tissues, because it's still going to create more of a lengthening, right? So that's going to open up the diaphragm more. It's going to open up the thoracic spine. It's really amazing how just 2 minutes of just rolling through those tissues will improve your breathing alone. So
yeah, I know. And what I discovered for myself is doing the soft tissue release, I was like, oh, this is where the real problem is. But I didn't know there was pain and tension there. All my chronic pain is not where my adhesions are. But it was amazing. Like you said, I mean, even 2 minutes makes a difference. It was literally like you could just feel stress and tension melting away in your body, in my body. And then when I stood up, it was like I had a whole different hips. Like I just had a whole different body in like a few minutes.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And so my second point of just seeing the visual, which I so appreciate this course. Thank you, Ryan. Is it's so clear what's keeping us in or out of alignment. Because you look at all those bones there, it's those muscle groups that are literally determining your alignment.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, wow, that was a big like visual of what I'm getting. So
yeah, this is very valuable for anybody watching right now, because you're getting insight into exactly how everything is kind of connected, because a lot of people like to talk, we can just talk all day about theory, but then when we actually see it, you're like, oh, okay, that's how it's all connected and it all makes sense. So let me go ahead and move on to the next one. Let's see, let's go with the serratus anterior. Where is it? There it is. Okay, so let's make that a little bigger there. Okay, so this is the anterior serratus anterior, I don't know, one or the other. And this is called the boxer muscle, because when a boxer throws a punch, they're reaching out and you can feel the scapula really like coming forward on the rib. So if you look at they call it serratus because it's like a serrated muscle. It attaches to these 9 ribs through here, and it attaches to the underside. You can't really see it here, but on the underside of the scapula. So you can imagine again, look at the orientation of the fibers, right? They're running kind of this way, like transversal, right? So if those become chronically shortened, where's that scapula going to go? It's going to come forward. And what are we trying to address? This forward shoulder positioning, right? So releasing this one is going to be huge in getting, or what's the word I'm looking for here? Restoring good scapular positioning, okay, and good shoulder function. So that's the serratus anterior.
Which I had a body worker too, is because my issues are chronic neck problems from whiplash and injury, car accidents and stuff. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just, one of the huge things I learned over the years, not that they taught me how to fix it myself, was you actually have to have a stable foundation for your neck. For your cervical neck. If you've got neck problems, this is the foundation. And that's why no other chiropractor, massage therapist, I burned through hundreds, could fix my upper cervical instability, because none of them were looking at the foundation that my neck was sitting on. So as you're going through this, Ryan, I'm trying to feel in myself. I'm trying to actually see if I can connect to the tissues you're talking about. And one of the things that I just felt was when I pull those forward, my neck has all this pressure, and that's my neck, that's my upper cervical instability. So talking about how it affects your whole body.
Right. And what you're feeling there is the kind of the fascial chains, right? So we did a post recently, yesterday actually, in the group of a little screenshot I took of the fascial chains. So if you guys want to just Google that yourself too, just look up fascial chains. And you'll see there's all these different alignments of fascia throughout the body. And so you have like the posterior longitudinal chain, the anterior, the lateral, you've got cross, the ones that create like kind of a crossing oblique fashion too. And so just as you said, when you go into protraction, it's called protraction when the shoulder blade comes forward, you're feeling kind of a referral up the neck, because the fascial tissue is what's creating that synergistic movement pattern throughout the body, right?
Yeah.
So let's take a look what we got next here. Okay, this is a good one.
Can I ask a question? Is soft tissue release fascia release? Is it the same thing?
Yes. Okay. So myofascial, right? So for example, a class I took in school is a myofascial class, right? Because it's all interconnected. Fascia, you have fascia around the organs, you have fascia around the bones, it's called the periosteum, you got the visceral I just said that, the organs, right? But then around every tiny little fiber, muscular fiber, you have fascia, then around a bundle, fascia, then around the entire muscle, fascia. You've got subdermal fascia. So it's all connected. So whenever I release a muscle, the fascia alongside it is going to release as well. So we don't really think about in terms of like isolating the muscle or isolating the fascia. We're thinking about, if I release up here down the kinetic chain, I create more length, or I create more tension, right? So yeah, that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. Well, and also I've been to myofascial release like therapists.
Yeah.
My experience of going to them versus what you teach is that it's almost a surface level thing with them, whereas you actually do get the trigger points and the deeper muscles and the fascia. They're kind of, I don't know, it just felt like it was always superficial. They were like, which helped a little bit, but it like didn't magically give me this massive amount of relief like what you've taught.
Yeah, it's the myofascial system's really misunderstood. There's still, it's still considered like a relatively new phenomenon in like movement and things like that. There's still, still really, there's so much to know about fascia. They're even talking about calling it like a sensory organ at this point. You know, there's just so much. It's even piezoelectric, meaning that actually creates electricity too. Like it's just a really, really fascinating thing. So
well, and that's what I appreciate, just to speak to, and thanks. I just don't want to step over anything, knowing this is so important as a video in our group. What was I gonna say now? Hold on. Oh, that's just what I appreciate about your experience, is you've done this for so long that you actually know what works because you've gone in and done it. It's not some theory or concept or one size fits all approach like all the myofascial release practitioners or massage therapists. They're going and learning just an approach and an idea and a concept to apply to everyone the same, versus you actually having worked with so many people, knowing how to customize this for yourself and teaching us how to customize it for ourselves by knowing our root causes as a unique person, our own blueprint, so to speak, and then being able to fix that. You're teaching us how to think about our own body, not just some rote system, which I appreciate.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. I'll shut up.
No, you're good. You're good. No, that's great. It's great feedback. All right. So now this is a very big one, very misunderstood. This is called the iliopsoas. I know most people have heard of the psoas muscle, but it's very, until you see it, it doesn't make much sense to people. But if you look at just, again, the orientation of this, look at where they attach the lumbar vertebrae, right? And then we look at the other attachment point where we go to the inside of the femur. So imagine if I'm sitting, if we're sitting in a hip flex position, what's happening to these tissues? They're shortening, right? So if I'm sitting like I have been for, an hour, what's happening is those tissues are now chronically shortened. So now when I stand up, now they're stuck. What is it tugging on? The lumbar spine. So a majority, I found, of lower back pain comes from a chronically shortened psoas muscle, which is so counterintuitive because most people think, oh, back pain comes from a localized back issue. I got to go through the back, which sometimes it does, but most cases it's here. So what the function of the psoas is hip flexion. If I just bring my knee up toward my chest, that's the psoas muscle. If I'm just sitting right here, that psoas muscle is contracted. It's passively contracted, meaning I'm not actively contracting it, but it's still passively kind of shortened. So this is a very important one to understand how to release, especially as it correlates to lower back pain. Now, lower back pain too is it's not just releasing, say, the psoas. It's also strengthening the right types of muscles in conjunction with psoas release, so we can create stability. Lumbopelvic, meaning lumbar and pelvic. This whole junction here's the lumbopelvic junction, creating stability in that area. That's how we're going to be able to, kind of get rid of the instability issues and the lumbopelvic problems that we encounter.
Cool. So, can I speak to that a little?
Yeah,
just from my experience and expertise. I've seen magic happen with psoas release. So I want to just talk about that. And in my own experience, I have lordosis, or had, I should say. Yep. So that's where your spine, like scoliosis is to the side. Lordosis is where your spine curves out like this, and it puts so much pressure. It would cause me to skip periods. It would cause me to be exhausted. It would cause back pain. So if you think of like going to a chiropractor for low back pain, they're going to adjust the bones, and they might adjust the hips, and that's it. They do not work with the psoas. So then you go to the massage therapists who are like, it's the psoas, right? And I've had chiropractors that could not big old burly guys, like putting all their weight on my spine to get it to flatten out. And they couldn't do it, and how much trauma is that?
Yeah.
Forcing my bones against all the adhesions and muscles, to flatten out.
Yeah.
Tons of trauma, tons of pressure. And then of course it didn't hold. In fact, my experience would be that if I got adjusted, but I didn't address the muscle group or whatever that was pulling it out, my muscles would flare up and they would actually pull harder. And so it was almost like the chiropractor would get me good for a day, and then I'd be like way worse. So chiropractors are looking at the bones, right? To get you back into alignment, not addressing the root cause. Then you go to the massage therapist, who spend a ton of time releasing the psoas. And oh my gosh, when I found that, I thought I found heaven, because I found true relief. Except what happens is I don't retrain my nervous system. So I just have to go back, and I have to go back, and I have to go back, and I have to go back. And all they're doing is trying to release and stretch and release and stretch and release and stretch. And that's a Band-Aid. So the blueprint is like, and what I think you hinted at it towards the end is like, it's not just releasing the psoas, it's that, tensegrity.
Integrity.
Integrity.
Good job.
You know, it's like strengthening the part that's actually going to hold my psoas in proper alignment. It's not just about stretching, because I've been stretching for 10 to 12 years and I still have flare-ups every month, you know, of all my problems. And then it's like, oh, now I have to go spend how much money to go have somebody release it, or I have to do yoga for psoas, you know, for hours at a time. And nothing really got me that immediate relief, but that was sustained, like the results that were sustained. So that's why the blueprint's so important. It's not just about soft tissue release. That's just the first step. Without it, you are wasting your time and money and energy. And then what's the next step is retraining posture,
right,
and alignment, and then strengthening comes next, because then you're actually, that's where you have a self-adjusting nervous system where you don't have to constantly go mitigate damage and mitigate breakdowns and flare-ups.
Yep, absolutely. That's essentially, in a nutshell, that is the pain-free blueprint, right? It's myofascial release plus neuromuscular feedback. Like those two together is what's going to get you out of distortions and those chronic patterns.
And so, awesome. Neuromuscular feedback, if you do that once a week or once a month with your body worker, that is not going to make up for the 24/7 information that you're feeding your body. So when you just know how to feed your body the proper information, you have a self-adjusting nervous system and a self-adjusting body. So
that's right. It's awesome.
Anyway, keep going. Yeah, this is so awesome to see it. And it's even awakening in me, like, oh yeah, now I can picture what I'm doing.
Good stuff. All right, here's another one. Okay, let's see here. Okay, so this one, you can see the psoas, but there's two muscles here that I wanted to bring up. So this one out on the lateral side here is the TFL, the tensor fascia lata. I don't know, it's all, you know, what do you call it? Latin, right? So you even told me that you did this one the other day and it was pretty gnarly, right? So this is you can imagine, again, if we're in this chronically hip flex position, sitting all day long, this muscle also assists in flexion, but also abduction, abduction, where the leg is going out away from the body. Also assists to a little bit of medial rotation of the femur, bringing the femur inward. So this is a really cool one, because anybody who's listening right now who has IT band problems, right? IT band syndrome, you know, down the lateral side of the leg, you've always got pain, kind of throbbing. Got a great little tip for you. By releasing the TFL, that is your best chance of actually relieving that pain. Most people go and attack the IT band. The problem with that is the IT band, the iliotibial band, is it's actually a very dense piece of like fascial tissue. So therefore, it doesn't have contractibility. It doesn't contract or lengthen. It's just this hard tissue that actually attaches into the TFL. Now, the TFL is a muscle and it does have contractibility. So with that said, if you have a chronically shortened TFL and I release the TFL fibers, I'm also creating slack in the IT band. And that IT band is also going to attach down. It's called the iliotibial band because it goes from the ilium down to the tibia, right? So here's the tibia down in here. It's going to attach to the front side. So if you also get lateral knee pain right around the outside of that knee, good chance that if you do some release to this TFL, you're going to relieve some of that pain on the outside of the knee. So again, that is a perfect example and representation of how we release tissues up here and then down the kinetic chain, we get relief. So that's one TFL. The other one I want to bring up, and it's extremely overlooked, is the adductor group. Okay, so here we got the adductor magnus and a couple of other ones, pectineus. And you see where it attaches right in here into the pubis, right? And then it comes down to the medial side of the knee. So I know most of you have experienced some pain on the inside of the knee. Now, oftentimes that's this muscle here called the gracilis. So this is an entire group here. You've got gracilis, you've got adductor magnus, you've got adductor minimus and pectineus. But this whole area in here is extremely important to release too, because these become very tight on people. And almost everybody I've ever had do some release to this area, it's like excruciating because it almost never gets released. And you can see how it plays a huge role in the alignment of the knee, right? So if I've got really tight fibers here, what's it doing? It's pulling the knee inward, and then I get that kind of like caved in. It's called a knee valgus, where the knee drops in, and now I'm exposing the medial tissues of the knee to all sorts of stress and damage, right? Because I'm not in that axial load. Remember we talked about axial loading, where the skeletal system is loaded over itself. Now I've created a kink in the kinetic chain, and now I'm loading pressure into the inside of the knee. So these two muscles, big ones right here, we got the adductor groups and the TFL, very important to do some release to.
So, and that's what, like, the last one you talked about is where, like, why we can't do the splits. Is that what we're feeling is tight, like, or that butterfly where you sit in?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, that
Yep,
I can relate
definitely.
to that. It's almost always tight. Also, what about sciatica? A lot of people have sciatic pain. Is that different, or is that connected to this somehow?
Sciatic pain, I mean, well, so it's all, you know, connected a little bit, right? But as far as sciatic pain, that's actually a different group. Let me very quickly just pull up. So you can see all this, right? I'm not great with this. Let's
We
see.
can still see your old image.
Okay,
That's
good.
Yeah.
Cool. That means I can just share it with you right here. Okay, so here's the sciatic. All right, let me find like a really simple version. Actually, let me do this one. Let's try this one. Okay. So as you can see, this is actually a great depiction. I like this one. You can see right here, this is the piriformis.
Oh, and hold on, we can't see. Will you reshare your screen?
Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry. Let's stop share and then share screen. And then let's do this, share. Okay, got it. All right, cool. So this is a great depiction. If you look here, this is the piriformis muscle. Now you always hear about the piriformis. The thing is, you've actually got, I want to say 5 lateral rotator muscles in this group here. Okay, so piriformis is just one of the 5. You've got like the, you know, I'm not even trying to name them right now because I'm a little rusty, but you'll have a bunch of little rotators in this area, and you can see that sciatic nerve passes through. Now, if you look at this little diagram on the left, that's why this is such a great diagram, is it shows you right here, you can see the piriformis muscle. If it becomes chronically shortened, it actually impinges the sciatic nerve. So now you're getting this tingling and pain running down the nerve. When you look up here, if we could just do some release work to the piriformis and those lateral rotators, we can relieve the tension in the piriformis. Now, again, this is what we do, right? We get to the root of the problem. Now you have to ask yourself, why is the piriformis muscle chronically shortened? Well, the reason why typically is because people's glutes don't work the way they should. So if my glute max works the way it should, my leg should swing into a nice extension. But most people have underactive glutes because they don't get trained, or they're sitting in, you know, flexion all day, so their glutes kind of shut off and don't work very well. So what happens is people default to turning their toes out. Now, the piriformis, along with the other 4 muscles, are lateral rotators. It means that it turns the femurs outward. So now they become chronically tight, and now you see people walking like ducks. So the next time you're out and about, I want you to look at people's gait, and you're going to notice that a lot of people walk like ducks. They're leading with their heel. Their toes are turned out away from them. Their glutes not working. Their piriformis is working. The piriformis's job is not hip extension. It's rotation. So that's what you're seeing is a chronic shortening because their glutes aren't working. So with the pain-free blueprint, we're teaching you, release the piriformis muscle, but let's keep it from ever happening again by keeping the glutes strong.
This makes me want to cry. It really does, because it's like so simple. And how many people are like, I'm going to go schedule a massage, like I'm going to go to the chiropractor, like sciatica is debilitating. It feels debilitating. It causes so much problem. Some people just suffer for weeks and months and forever. It's like, it's shocking how simple it is. So I just appreciate this opportunity so much.
Absolutely. Well, good. And yeah, it really is a relief to know that there's a way out, you know. It's very exciting. So I just wanted to show you this depiction to show you the complexity of the hip, right? Because you see these diagrams, and here's the piriformis, but look at all these other guys here, right? So, you know, another big contributor is the quadratus femoris too. That one can also play a role, but you can see why the piriformis is so significant because the way it overlaps that sciatic nerve, right? So you can see all these tissues in here. When I instruct people how to release these tissues, I'm not telling you, hey, make sure you like navigate around the obturatus externus, like you're really just trying to release this kind of general area. And it's kind of a shotgun approach to the hip because there's no way you're going to isolate one of these muscles. You know what I mean? Like even when
Yeah.
I'm working on clients with massage work, I'm just getting into that general area.
Well, and I was afraid. I don't want to go have to learn anatomy and physiology like a doctor, chiropractor, whatever. But what I think I posted on here, you guys, it's just a testimonial of my first 10 minutes, a journal entry I made. I was like, oh, my eyes are opened. I know what parts of my body, you feel the parts that need release. It's very simple. And then
Yeah.
it just makes sense somehow by just doing it. You learn your body. It's like your eyes are open and you can see things so clearly, the cause and effect and what problems are causing your pain. So
yeah, absolutely. And well, I had one more thing to add to that. It kind of slipped away, but it'll come back. Let me show you one last thing here. And again, guys, we're just showing you kind of the general, shotgun approach stuff. Oh, here's a good one. Let's go into hamstring. Okay, where is it? There it is. Okay, so hamstring. Okay, so if you look at the hamstring, look at where it attaches, right into this. God, I'm kind of blanking, but you know what? That's the beauty of this whole thing, right? You don't have to know the names. You just need to know the function and the attachment points. It doesn't matter. I could call this the bicep. It doesn't matter. It's you know where it is. You know what its function is. You know how to release it. That's all that matters.
Yep.
So if you look at how it attaches down into the knee, lateral side of the knee, middle, kind of the this general area here. But as it attaches to the hip, imagine, so we're looking at the fiber orientation vertical, right? So let's imagine those get shortened. What's it going to tug on? It's going to tug on the pelvis, right? Mm-hmm. So when it tugs on the pelvis, the pelvis goes like this. It goes from here to a posterior tilt, right? So that's contributing. So some people have, and actually I'm really prone to this. I tend to have more of a, not a lordosis. So a lordosis is what you, McCall, demonstrated was that hyperextension, but a hypolordosis. So it's not enough of a lumbar curve, which is going to contribute to issues, right? Just as much as a hyperlordosis is. So, based on the individual and on your own visual assessment or on the visual assessment we give you, this is going to determine, oh, you know what? It looks like the hamstrings might be a little hyperactive. Let's do some release there. But if that's not a problem for you, we don't worry about it.
Mm-hmm. So. When I see a lot of people with chronic back pain, hopefully you can see me, you guys, but it's like, it's that movement instead of, being curvy.
Yeah. So let me show you one other thing here pertaining to the hamstrings. Let's see here. I'm gonna pull it up real quick. Okay, let's do this one then. Okay, so I'm gonna share the screen here. Sorry, I'm not very good at this screen sharing thing. One second. Where is it? There it is. Okay, share. Okay, so let's take a look at the lumbar vertebrae here. So imagine, okay, so here's your sacrum, but obviously around this is the pelvis. So we just talked about if you reverse into that lordosis or that hypolordosis, you're going to see a literal reversal of this curve. This is a healthy curve, but you're going to see it move in the other direction. Between each vertebrae, you've got your discs. So if you just look at my hands here, if I'm reversing, what's happening to the discs? They're opening up, right? I'm creating all the space, and then there's a potentiation now for slipping a disc or a rupture. So that is the danger of having, again, that hypolordosis, right? With a hyperlordosis like you have, what you're going to feel is an impingement on those discs, right? Or some nerve impingement, and that's what can contribute to that kind of referral pain. So that's the significance of just simply releasing your hamstrings alone. Like imagine how much relief that's going to give you to the lumbar vertebrae.
You've adjusted your spine. Well, and I remember my first day, because that's where a lot of the concepts and principles of why I'm doing this sank in. It was like in my first 10 minutes, I'm like, okay, I get it. It just, everything you just said sunk in, and I know that it's true. And you even said, and you'll probably feel your spine adjust. And sure enough, I got some cracks and some pops, and I'm like, I really can do this myself.
Yeah.
My
You-
bones want to go back in. I just have
That's
to
what's
release what's pulling them out.
that's what's so funny, right? Because that was essentially a chiropractic adjustment,
Yeah.
but it was as a result of releasing the tissues. So
Yeah.
basically what chiropractors do are rapid adjustments. By releasing the tissues, you can actually feel everything that we're talking about. You're feeling the bones literally move into alignment.
Yes.
So
Feels so good. And
good
then you're
stuff,
like,
right?
I still have this idea, oh, I have to do my hour of yoga today, like kind of dreading it. It's like
Uh-huh.
seriously 2 minutes in, I'm like, oh yeah, I love this. Oh, it feels so good. It's just like going and getting a massage or an adjustment.
Yeah.
That's the relief I feel. It's not like pushing through an hour of yoga every day. It's,
Uh-huh.
so different.
Yeah, you will you'll get to the point where you get kind of hooked on it. You know what I mean? And it's, I always tell people it's not going to be comfortable. You know what I mean? It's going to be uncomfortable at the beginning, but you will get to a point where your tissues start to become very pliable and you're not going to feel those trigger points because you're broken them all down.
Yeah.
So here, now I'm going to show
And
you.
it's an investment of time. You know how with
Yeah.
all the other Band-Aid approaches, it's like, that's why it sucks so much to put time in on yourself, because you're just going to end up in the same place in a couple weeks, but with this, it's almost like all the time I put into myself is long term. I don't have to put that time in again almost.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not going to have to be doing such intense corrective work the rest of my life because
Yeah.
I'm actually correcting the problem. Then it's just maintenance, which is much easier.
Certainly. Yeah. And so here's the last one I want to show you guys. This, I just wanted to, so I'm willing to bet that 99% of people watching this right now have mid back, like you get the trigger points. Almost everybody's like, oh, I got this knot in my shoulder, between my shoulder blades. Now, this is a really great depiction of how other tissues can be affecting a tissue that you might think is the problem, but it's really a result of other tissues being tight. So these muscles, you can see the fiber orientation, right? How they kind of move in toward the spine. These are the upper, mid, lower traps. Now imagine if we have rounded shoulders, what's going to happen to those tissues? They're going to stretch. But those tissues don't want to be stretched. They want to contract. So what happens is you get what's called eccentric contraction, meaning that the muscles are lengthened, but they're trying to contract against being lengthened. So what happens when you do a bunch of bicep curls, right? Eventually you start to build up that lactate in the muscle, that lactic acid starts to build up. That's what you're feeling, a lactic buildup in those muscles because they're trying to fight for position. So now you're getting all these, lactic buildups. You got that mid back. This is a huge problem for me, but I've been able to address it by really being patient, getting on the right soft tissue tools and releasing those. And then it's just like brand new, right? This, McCall, specifically for you, if you look at the trapezius, this is exactly what you're talking about. See how it runs into the occipital. And for anybody watching, McCall and I were talking about this, but she's, she struggles with kind of some pain and restriction kind of up here in this occipital area. And I was telling her, she said when she turns her head to, what is it, the left?
Well, so yeah, when I turn to the right, I always hear like the.
Yeah.
And when I turn to the left, I have like much less, it's always tighter.
Yeah, so she turns, so if you guys imagine, say you've got pain here in this occipital area, this is the occipital ridge of the skull, but this is the attachment of the trap into that area. So imagine if it's really tight and she turns her head to the left, it's going to tug on that tissue. It's going to feel like she can't move because that tissue is restricted. So she gets in there and she does the right release techniques into that area. It's ultimately going to feel significantly better. This is something you could even just take your fingertips whenever you start to feel some problems, you know what I mean? Just like right in there, you can feel that occipital ridge and those attachments right in there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I just wanted to show this part to show you guys, how mid-back issues and, all that mid-thoracic tissue can become problematic when you have poor posture. But once we fix the root cause, then we're not dealing with all this mid-back pain.
And this actually right where you saw, that's where I self-adjusted.
Oh, okay, good.
And
Perfect.
it felt so good because then it's like, yes, it just opens up. Oh, there's so much relief when you do it.
Yeah, and then so.
And that's what the chiropractors do when they hug you. That's exactly the adjustment. They're not working with those muscles.
I'm gonna go out on a limb. I don't know how that saying goes, but anyway, I don't want to say this with too much confidence because I don't know that there's 100% science behind it, but I hold this true for myself. And well, there is science behind this. We've talked about the TED Talk, The Power of Posture, and how they found, I think it was like something like a 30% increase in testosterone in men when they stand upright with, they get in what are called power poses, very open, powerful positions. And obviously mood increases. So we talk about psychosomatic, right? How the inside can affect the out and outside can affect the in. So I'm willing to say that even people who are dealing with, low testosterone or serotonin issues, serotonergic problems, I'm willing to bet that if we fixed or restored the posture, what are you in now? You're in a confident power posture, right? Which is your natural default state of where you should be. So now, again, willing to bet that there's a whole cascade of hormonal changes, neurochemistry changes. So anyway, it goes so far beyond, and that's your specialty, right? That's what you
Oh yeah,
do.
I can, I know you're like, oh, I don't want to speak, if it's not 100% true, but we've seen it time and time again doing this 10, 11 years with chronic issues. When those are the kind of root causes that we're talking about addressing. And it might change person to person, which came first, the chicken or the egg, right? Is it your, is it your low testosterone and your low serotonin, and your depression and your insecurities that are what are feeding your nervous system to, change your posture? Yes, we've seen that. We've also seen the opposite, that injuries or, structural issues then actually lead to an exacerbation, the low testosterone, low serotonin, low dopamine, low motivation, depression, hopelessness, and people are like, I don't know why I'm just not back to myself. Well, it's because you can't separate the mental, emotional, physical, structural, metabolic. You're one being. And so the beauty of the blueprint, and we're just starting, this is a new group, we will get to all of these topics, but the beauty of the blueprint is, the fourth thing is addressing all the root causes, the stuff that's unique to you. So that means your blood sugar, that means your emotional trauma, that means your stressful divorce last year. Like, that's what this means, is healing all those parts of you so that they're out of the way and you can just move forward operating as a healthy, kind of like newborn, like a healthy, individual in life. You have a new life, you feel like you have a new body, you're complete with your past, you've got great hormones, healthy brain chemicals, healthy neurotransmitters. You don't need antidepressants. You can sleep well. Your adrenals are functioning well. You can handle stress in life. You're not stressed in life. Your life is working. Your budget's working. I mean, this is the blueprint, really, is going into all those parts that are impacting you. So I appreciate you bringing that up. I've absolutely seen it, and over and over and over again, too much to deny the connection.
Certainly. That's awesome. Thanks for reinforcing that. Well, so that's essentially it on my end. I think that, do you have anything that would need some clarification? You think people might want to hear a little bit more about, or?
No, you guys. So just to reiterate, this is so helpful because we can actually see what's going on. We can see what's pulling the bones out. We can see why chiropractic is insufficient and misses the boat. Massage is just a Band-Aid. Physical therapy doesn't do all this, so if you guys have special problems, that you want us to do a follow-up to this, to look at what soft tissues you might need to release, we're totally open to that. Also, if you're sick of playing the guessing game, you're sick of applying Band-Aids, you're sick of wasting a ton of time, whether it's on yoga every day or a ton of money on chiropractic, massage, physical therapy, that we created this group to put the power back in your hands so that you get that eye-opening, oh my gosh, I can see now what's causing my problems, and I know what I need to do for myself for the rest of my life, and how to address the real causes, which are not what people are teaching you. And set up a free breakthrough call. I'll post the link in the comments below, healingtraumanow.com/apply. And we'll actually sit down. I will sit down and talk to you and see what symptoms you're experiencing, what conditions you've been diagnosed with. Most of them are what we consider fake labels. It doesn't tell us anything about you. It's just a label. It's just a name for a set of symptoms. It doesn't talk about or identify the root cause, and there's no tests performed in order to give you that label. So that's not really helpful. It's just a label. It's just a name they slap on your symptoms. We don't care about that. We care about identifying what's actually going on that can explain the reason behind your chronic pain and your chronic misalignment and your issues. So I will sit down and walk you through what you've got going on, what's been missing in your care, what those root causes are, and exactly how to solve them. And if you're a fit for working with us and the blueprint, awesome. I will walk you through exactly what that means, what that looks like, how to do it. And if you're not a fit for our work, or we think we should refer you somewhere, or you need another step before you can really do this yourself, I will just tell you up front, we do not work with anybody that we don't know with 100% certainty we can help get them to their outcome. So that's the next step, guys, is scheduling a breakthrough call. Obviously, let us know what problems you've got going on. And if we haven't addressed it in a video, we will in the coming weeks. And of course, we so appreciate you guys, old members, new members, and just helping people build the group. You know, before Ryan and I hopped on, we were talking about our model might not be a good business model because we make you not need us anymore. And that's beautiful. That my conscience is great with that. And so is Ryan. He had to get out of kind of as a licensed massage therapist, he had to get out of that model because he couldn't in conscience just keep giving people band-aids. That's why we're here. And so I laughed and I said, yeah, that's so true. It might not be a good business model, but you know what? I'm not coming from scarcity. There's so many people in the world that have chronic pain, and it might take me the rest of my life, you know, before I make a global dent in, you know, in this or whatever, a global dent until everybody's pain-free. So there's no shortage of problems. And you know what? If we end up solving the world's pain problems in 5 years, we'll just go find a different problem to solve, because that's what we love doing, is serving you guys. So it really is about you guys learning to do this for yourself. And what that takes is very simple. It really just takes a willingness to be 100% committed. That means I'm no longer willing to put up with this crap. That's where I had to get to continue searching for answers and finding Ryan. And then, you know, taking that leap of faith for myself that after everything I've tried hasn't worked, I'm going to put that leap of faith because this makes sense. And sure enough, I mean, 10 minutes in, I'm getting massive ahas and massive relief. So, so number one, massive commitment, 100%. I'm all in. My life has to change. I'm not dealing with chronic pain anymore, and I'm not applying Band-Aids anymore. Number two, resourcefulness. Being decisive, being willing to get creative, to make it work, to show up for yourself, to be responsible for your life, and that you create your illness, therefore you create your wellness. If you're the problem, you're the solution. And that's very empowering. And the third thing, that all that it takes is coachability, being 100% coachable, doing the work, being in communication, asking for help, and really not giving up on yourself. Knowing somewhere deep inside, even if you don't know how you can get it, knowing that your body can heal itself, knowing that you can heal yourself, and you don't need anything out there to do it. You've been given everything you need to do it. So not giving up on yourself and pushing through and saying, until I get that relief, until I get my outcome, until I get my results, I'm going to keep searching for those root causes. And the beauty of working with Ryan and I is we make that process super simple, where we just identify your root causes, and then you just know what you're dealing with, and you've got that personal plan that's a surefire way to get your outcome. So then all you have to do is really just show up and be willing to show up. So Ryan, any parting thoughts before we end today?
Nope, I think we've said it all. I've dumped everything into this video today. So I'm really excited for anybody who actually takes the time to watch this.
Yep.
Because I know, attention spans are tough for people, but I know that the people who genuinely need and want change, like now, are gonna take the time to sit down and watch this. So, but that's it.
Cool. Well, we love you guys. Let us know what you're dealing with. Let us know how we can help. And Ryan, I just have to reiterate, I'm so excited that after all of your years of experience and your magical results you produce with your clients, you and I are partnering now to get this message out on a bigger scale, so we give a lot of other people access to just doing this for themselves. So we love you guys. Let us know what you're struggling with, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.